My dad cheated on my mom when I was 15 and moved in with the other woman. I have refused to spend any time with him or talk to him more than necessary since. I think what he did was disgusting, and I don't want anything to do with that woman either. My brothers, 21 male, 27 male, still see him, but I'm not interested. I refused to attend their wedding, which really pissed my dad off. My mom was upset by the wedding, so we went and had a ladies' weekend. Spa, massage, rented a house by a lake and watched movies. My brothers attended the wedding, so I thought it was fair to spend time with my mom instead. I also have a 5-year-old half-sister that he wanted me to meet, but I have refused. He threatened not to pay for my university, but I told him I didn't care. He couldn't make me spend time or talk to him. Did really well in school, got a free ride through university via an academic, and worked part-time to pay for all the other stuff. He also threatened to cut me out of his will, but I told him I was dead to him anyway. Once he realized he couldn't get me to talk to him that way, he tried to give me money and a car, but I have refused. I really don't want anything to do with him, and I think I'll be fine without him. I see him at family events but refuse to speak to him or the other woman. I have also refused to have anything to do with my half-sister. Last week, his wife was suddenly taken to hospital, and he wanted someone to look after my half-sister, so he called me. I refused. I have told him numerous times I wasn't going to get involved with my half-sister or his woman, no matter what. I hung up on him and blocked his calls. He ended up having to take my half-sister to the hospital and was apparently stressed him out. I have no idea why he didn't just call my brothers. They were home that day too, and are adults too, but he just got angry when I pointed that out and told me that they weren't used to kids. Not my problem. Anytime my brothers have tried to talk to me about not helping, I just keep pointing out that they were also free to do so, but didn't, and they keep in contact with him. That's shut them up for now. I have never asked my dad to bail me out of anything, so I don't see why I should have to help him out. I'm getting text message after text message from him about what a bad daughter I am. I've blocked him on everything, but then he turned up at my apartment to berate me. I got furious at that point and told him that if his S was so sick, he should be at the hospital looking after her. He told me not to call her an S, but I told him I was just calling a spade and slammed the door in his face. He left after that. Now his wife is bad-mouthing me to the rest of the family, and I'm getting phone calls from them about how I shouldn't let my 5-year-old sister suffer and how she didn't choose to be born. I've been telling people that she's not suffering, and had my dad kept it in his pants, she shouldn't have been born. It's not my problem. I keep being told I'm being harsh. I really don't care. How the hell do I cut my dad off permanently? I have now blocked him on everything, but he keeps reaching out through my cousins and aunts. Now, apparently he wants to apologize for what he said to me, but I don't want to hear it. I just want to be done with him. I also feel sorry for my brothers, extended family too. They tell him off whenever he badmouths me. His sister, my aunt, apparently put his wife in her place about asking me to babysit when she knew I wouldn't even visit. Apparently things were said between his wife and my aunt, and his wife left the house crying. Apparently the affair was brought up again, and my aunt told her she had no place talking about good behavior after being a homewrecker. But then my aunt still pushed me to reconcile, even though she stands up for me. My mom just stays out of it and tells me I'm a grown woman, and the relationship with my dad is none of her business anymore. This is a bit of an unusual situation, but I'll try to explain it as best I can. The story involves myself, 24 female, my best friend Caroline, 23 female, my younger sister Nicola, 19 female, and our mutual friend groomsman Daniel, 28 male. So over the weekend, a very good family friend of both my family and Caroline's family was getting married. Caroline and I have been best friends for years. We met when we were toddlers, our moms are best friends, our sisters are friends, etc., etc. You get the picture. We knew that both of our families would be invited to this wedding, and we were looking forward to it for months. It's important to note that Caroline's family and my family have a ton of mutual friends, and this was going to be a very large wedding. Guest count was in the 500s. Everything was going fine and dandy until Caroline got completely wasted. She kept talking to me about how hot one of the groomsmen, Daniel, was, and how she'd had a crush on him for years, but he showed no interest. This was probably because he was in a serious relationship and had been dating his current girlfriend for around 6 years. The girlfriend decided not to attend this wedding because she didn't know the bride and groom very well, and because Daniel would be a groomsman, she wouldn't see him very much either. Fast forward a couple of hours, and Caroline is hanging all over Daniel. She's constantly asking him to dance with her, get her drinks from the open bar, etc. She's point-blank throwing herself at him, and it was embarrassing and painful to watch. I tried intervening a couple of times to get her off of him, but she snapped at me, and at that point I decided that it wasn't my problem. Furthermore, Daniel wasn't completely pushing her away. He looked like he had a few drinks in him as well and seemed somewhat interested in Caroline. I decided that if he didn't care, I certainly wasn't going to. If he wanted to throw his relationship away, it was none of my concern. I tried. I didn't witness this next part, but by the end of the night, Caroline and Daniel are having S in a different room of the hall. Yes, it escalated quickly. To their misfortune, someone, I'm not sure who, just that it was someone's mom who knew Daniel and his girlfriend but didn't know Caroline, walked in on them. And for some reason, Caroline told this woman that she was Nicola, my sister. I don't know if she was embarrassed or drunk or what, but she purposefully identified herself as Nicola so Caroline herself would not be in trouble. Word quickly spread that Daniel and Nicola were caught having S, and Nicola was mortified. People were talking about how disrespectful, home-wrecking, rude, slutty Nicola was. I honestly can't blame them. Had I not known better, I would be thinking the same thing. On top of that, Caroline had gone around actually telling other people that it was Nicola and confirming the rumor she started. The bride and groom were pissed. Everyone was talking badly about my sister, and Caroline seemed to not care. In fact, when I confronted her about the situation at the wedding, she straight up denied it. Had Daniel not confirmed that it was Caroline he was hooking up with and not Nicola, I might have even believed her. The next day, Caroline texted Nicola a half-hearted apology about the whole thing, saying she was so drunk and didn't know what she was doing. The texts include a lot of LOLs and ha-has, so I'm not sure how seriously Caroline is taking the situation. She doesn't seem to realize how mortified Nicola is. Nicola genuinely thinks her life is ruined. We live in a very tight-knit community, and a lot of people have heard the false version of what went down. I'm at odds with what to do. Up until this point, Caroline had been a very good friend to both I and Nicola. I'm just not sure if I can forgive her for this, especially considering her lack of consciousness about how bad the situation really is. Should I dump her, or should I give her another chance? Our friendship will be different regardless. My family sees Caroline in a completely different light now, so even if I forgive her, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of the same things we used to. Hang out at my house, do things with my family, etc. What should I do, Reddit? Edit. At this point, a lot of people know that it was Caroline with Daniel and not Nicola. However, I'm not sure how many is a lot. Our family friends know, but there were a lot of guests at the wedding who knew Caroline's family better than they did mine. I'm sure these people still think it was Nicola. Edit 2. Another issue is that Nicola is also terrified of the potential ramifications from Daniel's current girlfriend. I have absolutely no updates on the situation with the girlfriend. I don't know her well, and I don't know what Daniel has chosen to share with her, if anything at all. Edit 3. Because a lot of people are asking me how I could even consider remaining friends with Caroline. Prior to this experience, she was honestly a great best friend. Of course, we've had our ups and downs like all friends do, but she has always been a kind and caring person, and I really valued our friendship. I've known her my whole life, and the evening at the wedding was very uncharacteristic of her, including her coming on to a man who was in a relationship. Throwing away a friendship with someone you have been close with for 15 plus years is extremely difficult. However, I am prepared to do this if it's the right thing to do. So about a week and a half ago, Caroline casually called me and asked to sleep over. She wanted to attend an event downtown, and my place was much closer to the event than hers. At this point, it became very clear that Caroline had no idea anybody was upset with her, despite the fact that Nicola and I hadn't spoken with her since the wedding. I told Caroline that I didn't think her sleeping over was a good idea, and when she had asked why, I brought up what happened at the wedding. She laughed and said Nicola needed to grow up and get over it, and it really seemed like she expected me to agree and laugh along with her. Well, Reddit, I took your advice and let her have it. I told her how selfish and inconsiderate she was, and if it truly was no big deal, then she should have no problem taking full responsibility for her actions and publicly acknowledging that she was the one who hooked up with Daniel and not Nicola. I told her she needed to make things right because Nicola was still mortified over something she didn't do. At the end of the phone call, I gave her an ultimatum. Post an apology to Facebook and spill the beans about what actually happened, or our friendship was over. Thanks to the Redditor who suggested this. To my complete and utter surprise, she did it. I thought it would make me feel better, but people were actually commenting on her Facebook status, commending her bravery and the fact that she did the right thing. I was super annoyed because, of course, she would never have done this had I not forced her to. But at the end of the day, Nicola is happy and her name is in the clear. Oh, and an update on Daniel and his girlfriend. According to his Instagram, they are happily together. Whether or not she knows about Caroline, I don't know, and I don't care. Not my train wreck. My ex-fiancé, 32, and I, 32, had been dating for over a year before he proposed back in April 2017. We were acquaintances beforehand. Our families had been friends for a long time. He and his current fiancée, 28, first dated from 2008 to 2013. By all accounts, she was his first love, probably the only woman he's ever loved. I knew him back then. He would never stop gushing about her, and the look in his eyes whenever they were together was proof enough. Towards the end, they were talking about getting married. Then, some girl messaged her saying that he had an affair. She turned down his engagement and broke up with him. Maybe she believed the accusation too readily because she wanted an easy out. My ex was utterly heartbroken. Anyways, a few months later, they both started seeing other people. The girl who he supposedly had the affair with turned out to be lying. She wasn't even in the country at the time of their alleged affair. But by then it was too late. Eventually, my former fiancé and his ex got to the point of being friends again. We started dating in 2015. We even went on several double dates with her and her new boyfriend. It was hard. At first, I compared myself to her. She was so tall and beautiful and skinny and smart. But he promised that he loved only me now. It seemed as if he was truly over her, or at least that's what he told me. In 2016, his ex got engaged. The wedding was in January 2017, and we attended. He acted normally throughout the whole event. Sure, he cried a bit during the ceremony, but it was emotional, and basically everyone did. In April 2017, he proposed to me, and I accepted. 2 months later, we received word that his ex and her new husband had been in a bad accident. Her husband died. She was hospitalized with non-life-threatening injuries. The two of us visited her in the hospital. After the accident, he began acting strange. He almost seemed to forget my existence at times. He would stare off absently into space and not say a word to me for hours at a time. I asked him if he was okay, and he just said that he's been stressed out at work. He's a busy lawyer, so I figured he must be working on a particularly challenging case. Then, one day in June, just a few months after he proposed, he had prepared a nice dinner at home for us. Suddenly, towards the end of the meal, he looked me in the eyes and said, "I can't do this anymore." He told me that he's been having doubts about the marriage. He confessed to me that he still has feelings for his ex, and that he had given up on those feelings after she got married. But now, with her husband passing away, he thinks he should be there to comfort her and to share in her grief, and he said he couldn't do that while still with me. So he ended our engagement. I gave him my ring back, and the next day I moved out of his flat. A week later, he sent me a lengthy letter apologizing to me and explaining his feelings. It could be summed up in one sentence: "I have always loved her, and you were just a backup." I was pretty much destroyed after. I was so in love with him, and he had fooled me to believe that he loved me too. I felt so used and humiliated. I was in the process of working with a designer to create my wedding dress. I had told my family. But slowly, I began to heal, with a lot of support from my loved ones. Then, less than a year after he ended our engagement, I received word that he had rekindled his relationship with his ex. I saw them together at a garden party. He even gave me a little awkward wave. He looked sorry for me. I had been healing so well, but seeing them together, seeing the look of love in his eyes was enough to break my heart all over again. He never looked at me like that, ever. It was evident that they were soulmates, in every sense of the word. It made me feel like the homewrecker for daring to keep them apart for nearly 2 years. It's been 3 years since he left me. I've been married for 4 months now. My husband is a wonderful man who I know will never hurt me the way my ex did. But what I found in the mail today was like a final slap in the face. It was their wedding invitation. Sure, he had invited my whole family, but it almost seemed like an insult to invite my husband and I. I told my mother that I'm not going, and she thought I was being childish and immature. She told me that his stepmother is her best friend and that I should learn to put the past behind me, especially now that I'm married. I haven't told my husband yet. Now my whole family thinks I'm dramatic for not going. I really just need advice on how to deal with their remarks, and I wonder if I am being too sensitive. I mean, I feel like I need some objective eyes to evaluate this situation, because it's like I'm in crazy town right now. I knew a guy, Clarence, from my old job that I left about a year ago. I didn't know him well when I worked there. I worked with him occasionally, but we didn't talk outside of work. He presented himself as single, didn't wear a ring or talk about a girlfriend or wife. After I left that job, I went out for happy hour with my old coworkers a few times to catch up with some friends. Clarence was there, and after one of those events, he asked me out. I accepted, but made it clear that I wasn't looking for anything serious or long-term. I was in a transitional part of my life, spending a lot of time on my career, physical fitness, and general self-improvement, so a relationship wasn't in the cards. He was fine with that, and the first time we went out, I suggested we go somewhere cheap, like the local dive bar with $2 beers and $6 meals, because I was on a tight budget. He said that he didn't want to go to a college bar. He was happy to treat me to something nicer. His idea of nicer was kind of ridiculous to me. Each of my drinks cost $40, and that became a pattern. I'd suggest going somewhere within my budget so I could cover the bill for once. He'd refuse and take me somewhere mad expensive. We were hooking up through all this, by the way. He also started gifting me stuff, perfume, makeup, spa and massage and manicure vouchers, and wouldn't let me refuse. He'd say stuff like, "I already bought this, what am I going to do with makeup?" But I didn't wear makeup much, or perfume, and I'm not super relaxed during massages because it's awkward being rubbed by a stranger. So I'd start quietly re-gifting those things to my female friends. The only thing that I kept was a designer coat. I started feeling more and more uncomfortable. It felt like he was trying to buy my attention, and he wanted something more than casual hookups. My friends were making fun of me all the time for having a sugar daddy. I felt like he wanted me to be something I'm not, all perfumed and made up and dressed up for fancy dates, when I would have had more fun hanging out in a dive bar or going and doing something active. So I ended things, saying that it felt like he wanted me to be something I'm not. He tried to get me to reconsider a few times, but I didn't. I thought that was all in the past, until I got a text from a stranger. She said she was Clarence's wife, her name was Zoe, and she'd found out about me. She was pretty angry, calling me a homewrecker and cussing me out in a way I'd rather not repeat. I told her I was really sorry. This was the first I'd heard about him being married. The few months he'd been taking me out, he'd presented himself as single, and I hadn't seen him in months. I'd ended things with him for my own reasons. She sent me another bunch of texts saying she didn't believe me and saying I owed her $6,200. Apparently, she had gone through the bank statements and tallied up everything he spent on me over the months we were seeing each other. She said the money he spent was their joint money, and I had no right to things bought with money that was their marital property. She hinted at taking legal action against me. I haven't replied yet. I don't have the money to give her, and while I feel awful he stole from her and cheated on her with me, honestly, that was his decision, not mine. I don't know whether I should reply to her and say I don't have that kind of money laying around and I've re-gifted almost everything he gave me. Or if I should contact Clarence and tell him he needs to sort out his own marital issues without dragging me into it. Or if I should just ghost them both and wash my hands of it all, unless I actually do hear from a lawyer, which I think is unlikely, to be honest.